So much, Reina. Everyone, please go ahead and select your channel. And Harris, if you could share screens for just a moment. I'm really excited to welcome everyone to the first Western Center for Ag Health and Safety seminar of the year. We are really happy to have you here today and to have a great presentation. So for those of you who might be new, the UC Davis Western Center for Ag Health and Safety Oh, thank you, Harris. I was off screen. So a few housekeeping items. The seminar is being recorded. All participants are muted. However, we welcome questions from all of you, and we will have an opportunity for Q&A at the end. As you heard, we have Spanish interpretation and English interpretation today. We are extremely thankful to our interpreters. And closed captioning is available if you select the CC icon below and click Show Subtitle. Next slide. So for those of you who are new to the seminar series or haven't yet had an opportunity to meet any of us here at the UC Davis Western Center for Agricultural Health and Safety, our mission is to improve the health and safety of agricultural workers in the West through innovative research, interactive trainings, and tailored outreach. And I think that there's no better example of tailored outreach than videos that are made specifically for individuals who speak Indigenous languages. And I'm so grateful that we have Griselda here today to present this information. So as you can see, this is our first seminar we've been off for a few weeks or a few months. So we're still working out a few of the bumps in the road. But I am going to turn it over to Griselda, who's going to present on how to make educational videos for our community. And that community really specifically are people who speak Indigenous languages, but I also know that these are lessons that are applicable to any educational resource or material that is made. Griselda is the COVID-19 Rapid Response Project Coordinator for MICOP, and we are so grateful to have you with us today, Griselda. The floor is yours.
Gracias, Heather. Muy buenas
Thank you,
tardes a cada
Heather.
uno de
Good
ustedes.
afternoon,
Gracias
everyone.
por asistir
Thank
a
you
la primera
for
titulación
being
final
part of
del
this
año
first
y vamos
seminar
a
of the year.
compartir con ustedes
So
el
we're
día
going
de
to
hoy
share with
cómo
you
hacer video
today
educativo
how to make educational
haciendo
videos
esta presentación
by having
de
this
forma divertida,
presentation in
dinámica,
a dynamic,
con
interactive
nuestros
way
equipos
with
en
our
diferentes
teams
organizaciones en las cuales
in
estamos
different
trabajando
organizations
y
that we
este
are
va a ser
working
nuestro
with.
tema el
And
día
this
de
is
hoy.
going to be today's topic.
Si pueden darle a la
If you
siguiente,
can
por
go
favor.
to the next slide, please.
Bueno, entonces
Well,
vamos a estar
so
platicando un
we're
poco
going
sobre
to
los
be talking a
materiales
little bit about the
de los cuales se
materials
deben que estar
um,
usando en este tipo de
that are going
actividades
to be
cuando
used
hacemos
for this type of activities.
nuestros
When we
videos, diferentes tipos de
make
videos.
the videos,
En
we
este
have different
caso
types
pueden
of videos.
trabajar
In
ya
this
sea
case, you
con
can work
teléfono celular con una buena
like
definición
having
y
by using
captura
a
de
cell phone
imagen
with
con
a
no
good
importa
image
qué marca
capture
sea el
definition.
celular, con
It
que
doesn't
tenga
matter the
una
cell phone
buena
brand,
captura
as long as
de
it
imagen,
has
esto
a
nos va a
good
ayudar
image
mucho.
capture. This is
Vamos
going to
a
help us a
utilizar
lot.
también lo que
We're
es el
also going to
trípode,
use the tripod.
auriculares
We can
y
use
quien haga el
headsets
video,
and a script for the
una
video,
persona de
a
apoyo,
support person,
como por ejemplo para
for
que esté apoyando a la
example,
persona,
someone that
una
is
persona
going
que
to
va a
be
grabar y la otra
helping,
persona que va a
one
estar
that is going to be
dando la
recording, and the
información,
other person who will
el
be
lugar de
providing the
donde grabar
information.
también.
Also a
Esto es muy
place where to
importante
record, and it's extremely
identificar los
important
lugares,
to
ya sea como qué
identify
tipos de
the
videos
places,
son los
the
que
type of
vamos
videos that
a grabar.
we're
De ahí
going
va a
to record.
definir el lugar donde vamos a
That's
utilizar.
going to
Puede
define the
ser
place that
como
we're going
un
to use.
lugar cerrado,
It could be a
un lugar
closed space, it
abierto,
could be an open space,
como en el campo, en un jardín
like in the
comunitario,
field,
en un
community
parque público,
center, in a
es
public
determinar qué
park,
tipo de video van
depending
a
on
realizar
the
y de ahí va a
video that you
depender
want to make.
el lugar o el
And
espacio
that's
que se
going to
va a
depend on the
utilizar.
place and
Siguiente, por
the
favor.
uh, area that we're going to use.
Aquí hay
Next one,
algunas
please.
imágenes para que puedan
Here are a couple
identificar
of
qué
images
es el
that
trípode.
you
Si
can
pueden mirar a su mano
identify
izquierda,
the tripod
donde
at
está la
your left
cámara,
hand,
está
where
desde el
it's the
palito que está
camera,
sosteniendo.
and the tripod that is holding it. Um, this is the tripod. I don't know if you're familiar with this word, but you could have an image. Um, at your right hand, you can see the microphones. Why do we need these mics? When we're recording a video, and usually we use our cell phones, this affects the audio quality, like to have good audio quality. And this could also capture other sounds in our surroundings when we're recording. That's why it is important to have these type of headsets to be able to place a mic on the person's clothes. If we are having like a type of news video, and if we're having an interview with someone in our community. So this is going to be placed in anyone's clothes. As you can see, there is also a device that is close to the phone so we can have good images as well as the audio. Next one, please. Here are some apps that we can use to edit our videos. There are many apps right now that anyone can use. Some of the apps you might be familiar with, as we did, for example, we decided to use CapCut app. This application it's completely free. You don't need to buy any additional things, but if your organizations, the ones that you're working with, if they have that possibility to buy any extra things, that will be much better. But if you don't, that it's not going to stop us from making a quality video. And it's going to be good for you. You don't need any additional devices. One very important thing is to download the app in your computer and not in the Google browser. Why is that important? Because when you are using the app directly from Google, it's going to cause a little bit of difficulties. So it is very important to download the app in your computer, to have internet access. You're going to be able to edit when you have the app downloaded from your devices, and to have ready the videos, preferably when I say have the videos ready, that's when you start recording videos like short videos, whether it is, we're going to talk about labor rights. That's an example. You'll have a video where someone is giving their testimony about the situation that they are facing at work, and then you will go back with information on what are the workers' rights that they need to know, and then you capture a couple of images. That's why it is important to have capture videos in parts and to have them downloaded in your different files. So you could have your files ready with the different short videos. If we want a couple of pictures, we should also have them ready. So when we do this work, you are already prepared with all these different parts, and then you will just go and you will edit by cutting or pasting. And in a while, we're going to see how we're going to do each one of these processes.
So once again, we are repeating the importance of having the videos downloaded on within your folders. Next. And here we have the types of videos based on how you want to share information. It could be different. It could be like a news report video. Then it could be, so that the news report is when we see somebody on the news that there is a person giving information behind a desk or behind a fixed place. There's not too much movement in the background. but you see that the person is in a enclosed location and there's somebody else who is recording them. So maybe with a news video, it could be somebody who is sharing information and capturing it themselves, or it could be two people who are sharing information. I think it all depends on how much personnel you have to be able to get it done. The second one is like a soap opera video where you're doing some acting and you're integrating other people, making sure that the information is more dynamic, more fun. And here, what we can do is short clips and put them together. And the video is being taken from different angles in different places. And from there, you incorporate everything. And then you do your edits and you have your final product. So this is usually not based in a fixed location or in one single location. These type of soap opera videos you could do from a closed space and open space, depending on what your topic is. And you can do it based on how you want your soap opera video to be. The other one that I want to share is an informative video. An informative video is very much like a news video. An informative video is when somebody is giving information, but there is a place where we cut and they're doing an interview, perhaps with somebody from the community, whether that be out in the open fields or somewhere. So there's more information, but with the use of somebody giving a testimony, and you also have somebody who is giving information, but perhaps these are more on a serious note, but not as much as incorporating the vast amount of information or no dramatization. So that would be an informative video. And the last one is a narrative video. The narrated video is when we're giving information through our voice, but our images are not showing up much. It's more than anything the information that we are sharing, videos about the locations that are tied to the topic that we're speaking about. But here, us as individuals or the faces don't necessarily come out in the videos. Here, you're just narrating what you are trying to share with the community. Next, please. How should we prepare for sharing information in indigenous languages? It's really important to note that you have to practice in your prime language. So if your prime language is English, it is of preference that you familiarize with your information, with the guides that you're going to use, the teleprompters, so that you can be ready and comprehend all the information and then interpret it into the language that you want to transfer it to. In this case, with our team, our primary language is Mixteco or Spanish. So first, we prep the information in Spanish, and then from there, we identify the technical words with which we're perhaps not as familiarized in our indigenous languages. And this is where we do a search for equivalent words in the language so that we can interpret that information, or perhaps we even do brainstorming sessions with our indigenous colleagues. And when we're doing this, it's really great to have the support of others who also speak Mixteco. And usually, perhaps it might be that it may not be the same variant. Perhaps if there is a team member who speaks Mixteco from San Martin Peras, and there is somebody else who has a similar language base, but perhaps if there is word like rainbow, Perhaps that other person doesn't have the constant use of this word, but the other person who does have a use of the practice of this word might say, I say it this way. I don't know how they say it in your community. And based off of that, we help the other person stimulate their mind as well to recover these words, because there are a few words that as indigenous speakers, we lose those words as the years go by, but it's very important to have the support of our colleagues so that they can support us with these words, and that way be able to incorporate them in our information as well. We're always trying to fight the battle of trying to use our original indigenous words and not use the loaned words from the Spanish derivatives. And this is how we rescue our languages, but at the same time, refortify the words that we often end up losing because we are borrowing from Spanish. Then we also record the audio in Spanish to then translate it to our indigenous languages. And why is this important? It's important because we have to have the Spanish audio very present for the interpreters who have had this practice. It's really important to be able to hear the information in Spanish and then start interpreting in our language that we are trying to do the language transfer to, and then listen to the information in our original language. And this helps the work be easier on us, so that we're not overwhelmed with stress when it comes to translating on the spot or having these tools. So it's really important to have this practice, but each person will have their own way of doing this type of work. Everybody has their own practices that make it easier. And as you're doing the videos, we want you to be able to see what works for you, what doesn't work for you. And if it's easier to transcribe in your indigenous languages as well, this could help quite a bit. But there are people who perhaps don't have these abilities of writing, and that's why we opt for audio, which is which is easier and more accessible. It's really important to hear the audio to ensure that it is comprehensive, because when we do the interpretation or the translation, it's a little bit different than when we're already sharing with the community, and some might struggle with understanding the messaging. So it's really important that we do a revision of our final product with other colleagues who speak indigenous languages similar to ours to see if it's comprehensive to them. So once we've been able to assess whether the information is comprehensive, then we would be ready to show this information to the community and share it out, because you've done your investigation to ensure that the information that you are sharing is comprehensive. It's really important to have in mind the topic of your video. Usually when a video is prepared, many people know that you can't capture a person for more than 3 minutes. So you have to ensure that if you can do a 2-minute video, that would be most ideal. But if it's a lot of information, the most indicated would be for this information to be shared in 3 minutes or less, so that you could have the majority of the audience who would be willing to watch the video. Once you have videos that are 5 minutes or more, and it overreaches or steps right over the audience that we want to share it with. So we want to make sure that we have the right audience in mind so that we know how we are sharing this information. And also, if you have any other question or if you want to have any other information, then perhaps you want to put the information to guide the audience to your personal contact information, so that if there's more information that they want than what was shared, that you could do some follow-up. And once you have all of this ready, then you will be able to see the video so that you could do the revisions, and so that it can be approved either by your communications department or with your supervisors. It would be good to always have several eyes looking at it, but the final product should be revised by somebody who is more familiarized with the work, to ensure that they are able to see, okay, this was missing or that was missing, or perhaps if your work was just excellent, maybe it's just ready to launch. So it's really important to have all of these steps identified so that your video can have great success. Next slide. So right now, we're gonna play a video that our outreach navigator, who is Julio Almazan, who works with our organization at MICOP, he prepared this tutorial for each and every one of you, so that when we can have these tools, how do we ensure that we're taking care of the work from start to finish? So we're going to start with this video, and at the end, if you have any questions or comments or reactions, we're here happily ready to help. Thank you. Good morning, and thank you for being here. I'm going to present a mini video regarding CapCut videos. Here is where we start off, so that you can start a video from scratch. So sorry, we might have had a minor delay. We will be right with you, and we'll continue. We are getting a message. Just give us one brief minute. So sorry, we're just having some technical issues, but in a moment we will continue with the video.
Maybe I'll go ahead and ask a question while we get that started, Griselda. Thank you so much for sharing the information you've shared so far. One question that came through had to do with the length of time that it takes to do these messages. When translating or interpreting from English to Spanish, we know that it can be quite twice as long. What about in indigenous languages? Is it even longer? Go ahead and answer. Why don't you go ahead and respond to that, Griselda, and then we'll have Elizabeth get started. Thank you.
Gracias. Excelente pregunta,
Thank you.
Heather.
That's an excellent question, Heather. This all depends on your team, the people who have these abilities to speak an indigenous language. It depends on their experiences. It could be that the work could take a day, it could take 2 days, it could be that the work could take 5, 6 hours. It all depends on the experience that the team has, how prepared are they as interpreters. And it's not the same thing to establish a new person to try and attempt to do this type of work. Nevertheless, when they don't count with a colleague who can provide them with ideas or technical wording that perhaps they have not used in the past, where perhaps they may not know the equivalents in the indigenous languages. So it all depends on how prepared the personnel is. And this is why it is so important to find seminars, workshops, videos, all types of support material to give to our team, so that they can fortify their abilities So we have to have consideration on all these topics before we say, well, this is going to be a one day of work or these weeks of work. I think it all depends on the individual person, their experience, and the support. So I'll leave with these three factors, and we can continue facing the work from there.
Wonderful, thank you. Okay, Elizabeth, why don't we give it a try again and hopefully the computer will cooperate.
Yes.
Muy buenos días. Gracias por estar aquí.
Good morning, everybody, and here.
Okay, so I think that we are
Bueno,
learning
parece
that
ser como que estamos aprendiendo que
it's just not going to work.
tal vez no
So
va a funcionar.
why don't we go ahead
¿Por qué
and
no?
have a conversation,
¿Por
Griselda?
qué no tenemos una conversación,
I also
Griselda?
think that maybe
Y
Reina or
creo que
Diana, you might
también Reina o Diana.
in a different.
Sorry, I saw what happened.
Thank you so much. So Griselda, I think this is such a unique opportunity to be able to talk with you and pose questions to you because you have so much expertise. So rather than watch the video, we will have a conversation. I know I have many questions, but I'm going to also see if folks can put their questions into the chat and we'll go from there. Focusing a little bit more on, I loved how you described the rainbow and different words that exist in different communities and languages. How do you describe some of the more technical or regulatory words, some things about law? How does your team approach that with Indigenous languages?
Excelente pregunta,
That's
Heather.
an excellent question, Heather. This is really important. For example, I can think of a word that we state, like food. Literally, when we, as my experience as an interpreter, in my variant in Huaclapan de Guerrero, we don't have a literal word for it, but we do have the description of what the word is. So in my variant, I would say ashishon and not ashishilangas. So this is something that you eat or something that we eat. So it depends if it's plural and second person or neutral. So based on that, then we can see what how we give the information, because we need to talk about equivalence of the wording, and based on that we can think of other things. For example, I want to think if anybody wants to mention a word in Spanish so that I could think of the equivalent word and to be able to interpret it into Mixteco. Perhaps if I don't have that word within my vocabulary, I can talk to my team. I have the fortune of being able to count with the expertise of 8 other people who are bilingual, some are trilingual. So we brainstorm, and perhaps one of them says it this way, the other says it that way, somebody might say it totally different. So this depends on the variant that each one of us is working with, but at the same time, where we are working with the investigation of this such word.
Thank you so much. It looks like we have a question from Daniela, who I think might be asking some similar questions that I had. How do you decide which format of video to use for a different topic? So you talked about the news or a soap opera. How do you decide which type is the best for a topic?
Excelente pregunta.
That's
Esto
an
depende
excellent
mucho
question.
de
This
los
all
temas,
depends
como por
on the
ejemplo, si estamos
topics. For
hablando sobre el
example,
clima
if we're
extremo
talking
que
about
apenas
extreme heat,
pasamos en
which
estas
we
fechas,
just
¿verdad?
went through
Para mí
during
el calor
this
extremo es
season,
más
for
divertido
me, or
pasar
to
esta
me,
información como más tipo
preparing
novela, donde
information
las
about
personas
extreme
están
heat
dando
is
la
more like a
información
soap
en el
opera
lugar de
where
trabajo,
you're
haciéndolo
talking to
simultáneo,
people and doing it
simultáneamente
in the
interpretación,
workplace
haciéndolo
and
como más
ensure
divertido
that
y
we
que
are
atrae
doing it in a
la
fun
información,
way,
pero sin
that the
olvidar los
information
lugares
is
que
attractive,
la información
but
que
without
debemos
it
que llegar,
forgetting
ya
about the
que
information that
el
we're
calor
trying to
extremo se puede,
portray,
la
since the
información se puede
extreme
prestar
heat
a
or the
hacer videos
information
más dinámicos,
can allow you
regresar a
to
las
do more
personas en el
dynamic
campo, estando haciendo
videos
actividades
where people are in
simulares,
the
de
fields
que
or
las
maybe
personas
they're
están
doing an
trabajando
they're
con el
acting and
fuerte
people are out in
calor,
the
con el elevado
work
calor tan
site,
fuerte que
and
tuvimos
with the
y
extreme
donde
heat
los
wave that we
rancheros no
had,
están dando
where farm
tiempo
workers or
suficiente para
farmers
poder
are
tomar
oftentimes
su
not
tiempo de
giving them
descanso
enough
o que no
time for
tienen el agua
rest, or
accesible
perhaps they don't have
en el
accessible
lugar de
water
trabajo. Entonces ahí
at
podemos
their
hacer
workplace. So
diferentes
based on what
escenas
we see,
donde
we could
podemos
do
capturar
different
cada una de
scenarios where
estas
we could
imágenes,
capture each
ir
and every one of these
complementándolas,
images
¿verdad?
to
Y pasar esta
complement
información.
each other and
Eso
then be able
como
to
yo
share
lo
out this
tomaría de esa
information.
manera.
That's
Hacerlo un
how
poco
I
más
would
dinámico, más
take it
divertido,
into
la
consideration.
información,
Be
pero
dynamic, be
sin
more
olvidar el
interesting
mensaje que
without
estamos
forgetting the
enviando a la
messaging that
comunidad, pero a la
we are
misma
trying to
vez
send out to the community,
identificándose con el
and
video de que
also
esta es la
helping
realidad en
them
la que estamos
identify with the
viviendo
video
desde el
so
trabajo.
that we remember that this is the
Ahora,
reality that we are
si estoy
living in the
dando una
workplace.
información
And if I'm giving
sobre el número
information
21, un
that
ejemplo,
is about the
que esto
I-10,
no
for
es tan
example,
dinámico, tan divertido
that
en el
this
lugar de
isn't
trabajo,
as
en
dynamic,
un
this
lugar
isn't
abierto
as
desde
much
el
of a
campo,
fun
¿no?
space
Entonces, esto yo lo
to
daría
share in the
más como
fields.
tipo
This
noticiero.
is something that I would
Puede
do
ser
more as a
noticiero o
news
puede ser
report or
información
perhaps
educativa.
informational
Esto puede ser
video,
estando en la
and this
oficina,
could be
dando
something
la
that I would do in the
información de los
office,
sitios donde
preparing
ellos
the
pueden ir a
information so that they
aplicar,
know
cuáles son
what
los
the
documentos que
locations
tienen que
are, where
tener
they can go and
listos
apply, what
ellos
type of
a la hora
documents they
de
have
ir
to
y
have ready
aplicar
when they are
por su
going to
número
go
de
and
I-10
apply for
para
their
que ellos
I-10,
estén preparados,
so that they
tener el
can
sitio
be
web
best prepared with
de
their
donde ellos pueden
with the
acceder para la
website where they can
información.
go
Entonces,
for more
este
information.
tipo de video ya es
So
diferente a lo que
these
estamos
type of
hablando
videos are a little
sobre
bit different than
el
what
calor
we were
extremo.
talking about
Ahora vamos
with the
quizás
extreme
con algo
heat.
narrativo.
And we're
Puede
gonna go with
ser,
something that's
no
more
sé,
narrative.
sobre
Perhaps it might be about
cuidemos el agua, puede ser
uh,
¿verdad?
let's
Como por
talk
ejemplo hay
about
el
water.
programa de
Perhaps
Cuidemos Nuestra Agua.
we
Hay
know that there's a program about taking care of
ciertos
our
pasos
water,
que uno puede
and there are
hacer para
certain
poder
steps that we can
salvar el
take to
agua,
be able
darle un
to
segundo
do water
uso al agua cuando
conservation or
lavamos
give
trastes.
water a
Puedes
second
usar
usage.
esta
Like, for
agua para
example,
regar
after you
plantas,
have gray
puedes
water from washing
utilizarlo
your
para
dishes, you could use it for your
lavar
plants, you could use
otras
it
cosas,
to
puedes reusar
wash
el
other
agua,
things, you can
puedes poner la información de
reutilize
lo que
water.
estoy
So you can
tratando,
put the
colocarlo
information that
como
you're
los
trying
links
to
también donde tú
offer
puedes
and
aplicar
adding the
para
links
descuentos o
where people
efectivos
can go
de
to be
utilidad del
able
agua.
to
Entonces puede
also
ser
get
como
more
algo narrativo,
information or
pero
for
también
water
educativo.
discounts. So it could be
Puede ser
narrative, but at
como
the same time, it can
teatral
be
también, que es tipo novela,
theatrical.
porque se presta
So
la
very
información para
similar
hacer estos
to a
diferentes
soap
tipos de
opera because
videos.
it
Entonces
allows
todo
itself
depende
for
mucho de qué tipo
storytelling
de
through these
información estás
videos. So
compartiendo
it
con la
all
comunidad.
depends on the
Y
type of
ahí puedes
information that you are
ver
sharing with the
cómo
community, and
sería tu
based off of
video.
that,
Pero
you can
recuerden
depart
que es
as to what
importante
type of
también
video you want
tener
to
la
share,
opinión de tu
in
equipo.
terms of the formatting.
Cuando ustedes
And
les
it's also
preguntan
really important to get
cómo
the
presentan
opinion
la
of your team
información,
when you ask,
ellos
how
tienen
do we
muchas
want to share
ideas
this
de cómo
information?
compartir con ustedes.
Oftentimes your
Pueden
teams have lots
ustedes
of great
escuchar qué tal si
information
sería
or
de esta manera,
input, and you can
un
share, I
tipo
was thinking
novela,
about
como
it this
narrativo,
way. What do
o si
you
no se
think?
animan con suficiente personal,
And perhaps you
pueden
don't
hacer
have
algo
enough
más
personnel,
dinámico y
and
no pasa nada,
perhaps
con que la
with the
información
lack of
esté ahí
personnel,
y
you
que
might
sea
need to
clara,
make it
con
informative
eso
because of that
presentamos súper
reason.
bien. Pero
So
sí es
as long as
importante
you have the
también
clarity on the
capturar
information
como
and
las
the
opiniones
end
de
result,
personal
you can
y ver qué
decide what
sería
type of video works
más
best, but
eficiente
definitely
para
talk to your
ustedes, porque a
personnel
veces
to
algunas
see what's more
organizaciones
efficient for you
tienen
all,
solamente dos
because there
personas,
might
una
be an
persona,
organization
entonces
that
no
only
va a ser
has one or
posible
two
que hagan
people
un
available
video
to do
más
this. So it
dinámico
wouldn't allow
por
you to do
falta de
a more
personal,
dynamic,
por no
more
tener
of an acting
tiempo
video due
to the lack of personnel, due to the lack of transportation or for different things, or because of the difficulties that your personnel might be going through. So you have to consider what you have available.
Thank you so much. That's really valuable information. Kind of staying on that same theme, how do you decide what music or pictures or setting that you want to include in a video?
Bueno, en este caso
Well,
es
in this
dependiendo
case,
también
it
con las
depends
becatas en las que están
on
trabajando y
who they're working with,
también si hay
the grants.
informaciones que ustedes
If there
tienen que
is
abordar y
information that you
compartir
need
con la
to
comunidad,
address, that
de ahí
you
va a
need to
bajar la
share with the
información.
community,
Si hay
if there
información
is
que ellos quieren que
information
utilicen
that
sus
they
imágenes, como
want
por
them to
ejemplo
use their images, for
demostración,
example, as part
generalmente
of
hace
the
un momento,
presentation, like the
no sé
one that we
si
saw
pudieron
a
notar
minute
que hay
ago. I don't know if you
algunos
were able to see
logos que están
that there
abajo,
were some logos
dependiendo
at the
de
bottom.
cómo está su beca.
It
Si
depends on
ellos están
what type of
solicitando
grant you
precisamente
have.
por
If
sus
they are
imágenes a
requests
ellos,
for
entonces
their
pueden
images to be
incorporar lo
part of the
que
presentation, then you
se les
can
está pidiendo.
incorporate
Si
what you're being
solamente
asked
dicen
to.
compartan la
If they only
información como
say,
ustedes lo
just share the
consideran,
information
entonces
as you
esto
consider
nos
the best way
da
to
un
do it,
espacio más
that give
abierto
us
para
a more
poder
open
compartir
space to be able to share
imágenes propios de ustedes mismos sin tener
your
que
own images
bajarlos a través de
without
Google o
having
de
to download it
alguna
from
otra información
Google
que
or
son
any other
propietarios de estas
information,
fotos, de estos
uh,
videos.
like
Entonces,
if they
esto para
own
que
the
ustedes
pictures or
tengan
they own the videos,
todo el crédito
for
del
you to
trabajo, es
have
mucho mejor que ustedes
the credit
utilicen
that you did
sus
the work.
propios
It will be better
imágenes,
for
ya
you
sea
to
que
use your own
si la
images.
información va dirigida para los
If the
trabajadores agrícolas,
information
pueden
is
capturar
has a
imagen en el
farm workers
campo
as target, you can
con
capture images from
imágenes
the
de
field,
personas que están trabajando,
people
pero
who
es
are working
importante
in the
también
field, but it
solicitar
is important
su permiso de
to
capturar su
request
imagen
their
antes de poder
permission if you want
publicarlo,
to
porque
capture the images
esto
before you
nos ayuda
publish it,
bastante para
because
no
it is going to
tener
help us a
ningún tipo de
lot
conflicto en el
to avoid
futuro al
having
utilizar
any conflicts
imágenes
in
que
the
no
future
fueron de alguna
for
manera
using
nosotros
images that
aceptados.
maybe we didn't
Entonces,
get
si es el
the
caso, hay
permit
personas que
before
no
using
quieren
them.
que sus imágenes sean
Sometimes there are
publicados,
people who don't
utilicen
want to
imágenes
share
de
their
sus
images.
propios equipos donde ellos
In
están
that case,
haciendo
use
una
images of your own
simulación
team,
de
maybe just like
trabajo
they
en
are
el campo.
simulating,
Pueden usar
doing some
eso
field
cuando
work.
están
You
haciendo
can
videos
use that
también,
when
videos
you're having
cortos.
videos.
Va a
If it
ser
is a short
con
video,
el mismo personal
you
que
can
ustedes
use
tienen
the
y
staff
capturar
that it's
las
available for
imágenes
you
cortos y
and
así
capture those images for a short
implementar
video
todos juntos, colocar
and all
todos juntos para
together
que ustedes puedan tener
implement
este
it
producto
so you could
y que
have
todo el
the
crédito
final
siempre para
product
ustedes sin
and
tener que
for the
pedir
credit to be
permiso a
for you
nadie, porque
without having to ask
todo el
permission
desde
to
cero hasta el final,
anyone, because
ustedes
the
son los
whole product
creadores
from
de
scratch,
cada una de
everything
las
was
imágenes o
created
videos que están
by you,
incorporando.
any images or
¿Tienen
videos that you are
preguntas?
incorporating. But excellent questions. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So a question about, I guess, partnering. It's from somebody in the audience who asked, acknowledging that not all Indigenous languages are written, though I know that you actually are working on creating more written materials to keep the language alive. If you partner with an organization to create an audio file or a video, how do you share that back to them? Do you have transcripts in the Indigenous language or only in Spanish?
Esto depende mucho, ¿verdad?
It
Porque
depends.
nuevamente
Again,
resalto mucho esto,
I
no
want to
todas
highlight this a
nuestras
lot.
comunidades
Not
cuentan
all
con
of
la
our
habilidad de
communities have
tener
the
escritura, ¿verdad?
capacity to have a
Todavía estamos
written
en el
language.
proceso de
And
poder
we're still in the
estandarizar
process
una
to
forma de escritura,
standardize
ya que nuestros
a
lenguajes
written
es más
language because
tonales.
our different
Entonces puedo
languages are more
mencionar
vocal.
varias cosas como
We can
seis
mention a
palabras,
lot
un
of things
ejemplo
like
que se me
there
viene
are an example
rápidamente,
that
que
came to my
pueden ser
mind.
como sal,
There are six
sangre,
words
pelar,
like salt, blood,
delicado,
peel,
am,
dedicated,
piel, que es igual, y voy a
skin,
repetir cada una de
that
estas
it's the
palabras
same.
para
And
que
I'm going to
ustedes puedan
repeat these
tener un poco
words
más de
for
noción
you to
de
be
las
able to
palabras que
have a
estoy
better
hablando,
notion
como
of
por
the words
ejemplo,
that I'm saying. For
i,
example, i,
i,
i.
y, y. Entonces, cada una de estas
So
palabras, yo dije
each one of these
pero
words
cada una de estos son palabras diferentes.
are different
Pero a
words.
la
The
hora
different
de
sounds that I made
leerlo
mean different
sería
words,
con
but when you write
IN,
in
doble
them, it
I,
could be
pero la
double
diferencia son los
I-E-N.
tonos, que
So
son
the
tonales,
difference are
¿verdad? Que si es
the
tono
tone that I
bajo,
give it to
tono
it. If it is
medio,
a low,
tono
middle
alto,
tone,
tono
high
ascendiente,
pitch,
tono
like
descendiente.
ascendant or
Entonces,
descendant.
medio
So
bajo, eh,
mid, low. There are different tones, and I love this personally because fortunately I have the skills to be able to transcribe my own language. Um, I cannot transcribe anyone else's language because it will be very difficult. But I know my tones, but I do not know the tones of San Martin Peras, for example. It's one of the communities that we have been working with a lot here at the Ventura County, but there are other variants, for example, at San Luis Obispo of Cachuapan Guerrero. So there are different variants and different tones. They are not the same. So we are native speakers again, but not all of us had the opportunity to go to school or to have education, but we're expert in our languages. But when we want to write them down with the new generations, people who were fortunate enough to have education, like our new generations, there are many universities that are working to save indigenous languages through their linguistics department. So they are learning how to develop these new skills on how to write down our languages so we could have a transcription from them. But again, not all of us have those skills. Our elderly population, they don't know how to read or how to write in our languages. And if we have, it's just a couple of them. So depending on our different communities. Another thing is that there are communities who have rescued their own languages generation after generation, and it all depends on how, if they had the privilege or they were marginalized for speaking an indigenous languages. Luckily, so far, we have been revaluing our languages, but it wasn't even 10 years ago, but we were still struggling for our work to be recognized, to be validated, for them to validate our languages. And I'm sorry to say this, but now it is a trend. You know, it is trendy for everyone to be able to identify as indigenous or to speak an indigenous languages, when a couple of years ago we were marginalized. And there are many communities that they didn't want to know anything about their languages because it was considered something negative back then in the past. Now there are many people, our youth are proud to speak their indigenous languages. They are proud to be part of indigenous communities where teachers in different areas, they're feeding that knowledge to be able to rescue and share this information with our youth so they can learn the skills to transcribe our languages. So it's difficult to say how we do transcription because not everyone has a transcription, but we are in the process to change that. And I'm sorry if I extended a little bit in this question.
No, it's amazing. And it's thank you so much. The languages are so beautiful and it's important to keep them alive. So thank you for all the work that you are doing. And I want to say that, you know, we have partnered with MICOP, with you, Griselda, and others on the team, and to work on some video scripts for different topics. And it's so amazing to see the back and forth process that it takes to finalize language and come up with the most accessible, but also appropriate way of describing something. So thank you for all that work. I do have a question. I had it, and then I see someone else asked also about sharing and disseminating the videos or the messages. How do you typically get them out to the community members who speak the language?
Usually what we do as part of our organization is that we send the videos through the different platforms that we have, whether it's Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, But on top of that, not only talking about videos, we only have like public announcements. It's what we call the BSA. So the same information that is on the videos, we can have them in audio as well. So we share this information through our indigenous radio, 94.1 FM. It's the same information, but not videos, just audios. This is how we have practiced as part of our organization. And so far, it has worked really good. So identify our community. What is the easiest way to access them? And the different apps that they might use. For example, I can talk on behalf of my community that we have identified that they use a lot of Facebook. Elderly people that I'm very glad for them because they use Facebook for many different things and to get information, to educate themselves, to have fun, for many things. So for them, it's easier to use this app, but there are other communities that maybe they would prefer Instagram or maybe YouTube videos. So it depends on what were the activities that you have identified with the community that you're trying to reach, and we can start from that point and identify what would be the best platform for them.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. So, for example, there's so many questions burbling in my head. For example, if you we know there's many languages that are in the Mixteco family. How much overlap is there between them? And I think of myself as someone at a center who's trying to create more resources and videos. I know we have people from the state listening here. How do you prioritize what language to start with? Because, time, money, all those things, every language is important. Which one do you start with?
Muchas gracias por la pregunta.
Thank you for the question. Again, we're going to go back with the same information. We have to identify the community that we're serving in the different counties. For example, whether here at the Ventura County, the biggest population that we have found is from San Martin Peras, but maybe for San Luis Obispo County, that is another county that we also have presence and that we are serving. We identify other communities, other populations, and then that would change. What I know so far, it's Cochuapan, Guerrero, El Grande, or people from the community of El Guerrero. So the community is different. For example, in Santa Barbara County,
la información de que puede ser San Juan Piña, puede ser
have the information that could be San Juan Piña or San Juan Mixtepec or other different languages. So San Martin Peras won't be part of that community. It will be another community that is part of the county. So it's extremely important for each one of you, depending on the county where you are experts with your community. You are the experts with the community that you're working with. When we go and do outreach at the community, we identify what are the languages that they speak in each one of the cities that we're working with. And from that point, we can say, this is the language that we need to work with, or the information that we need to develop and we want to share. But it could be that maybe this is something happening in one county, but maybe not in California, but maybe in a different state. I could say Washington, for example. Maybe it could be a Triqui community, or it could be Urepecha community, could be Hmong or Wabe. So it depends. So again, you are the experts at your communities, your local areas where you are, and that's your starting point. This is the community that we are serving, and this is the language that we need to share information with, because if you send information from Mixteco, but that specific variant it's not present in the place that you're trying to reach, it's not going to work because that community is not present there. I hope I was able to answer you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think it highlights the importance for groups like ours at UC Davis and state people at the state to work at the local level so that we know what language to use in each community. Let's see. So many more questions that have come in. So a lot of appreciation, I want to acknowledge that. So a lot of people really are appreciating the information that you're sharing. And oh, there we go. That was the question I was going to ask. Frank posed another question about the type of industries. So I know that MICOP does a lot of work with agricultural workers, with farm workers on the coast. Are there other industries or types of business that you have seen a need for Indigenous language videos in?
Creo yo que donde nosotros hemos
I
identificado,
believe
sí, nuestro
where
gran
we have identified
trabajo ha sido con nuestras
most of our work has
comunidades de
been with
trabajadores
our
agrícolas,
farm
donde ahí
workers,
también puede
but
con trabajadores que están en la
we can
jardinería,
also work
en la
with people who are
construcción.
doing gardening or
Pocos están en los
construction.
restaurantes, pero la mayoría
Just a
está
few other
en el
restaurants,
área
but
de
most of
agricultura,
them
pero también
are
me ha
farm
llegado
workers.
información
But
de
I also
otros
have received
estados que
information
están
in
en
other
ganadería,
states
¿verdad?
that they're in
Cosas
the
de productos
dairy
lácteos. Entonces,
dairy
nosotros solamente
area.
abarcamos lo
So
que es
we
el
only
condado de Santa
are
Bárbara, San
working
Luis
with
Obispo
Santa
y
Barbara, San Luis
Ventura.
Obispo, and
Entonces,
Ventura County.
bajo nuestro conocimiento que nosotros
So
tenemos como
the knowledge that
organización,
we have
la
as
mayoría son
organization,
trabajadores
most of
agrícolas,
them are
pero
farm
también ha
workers,
llegado otra
but
información
we have
que
also
en
received
otros
extra
lugares donde ellos
information that
están
other
presentes, puede ser
places
que
that they have
no sean
presence,
comunidades muy grandes y que
maybe
sean
not
pequeñas, pero
big
están
communities, maybe
presentes
just
ahí.
small
Por
communities,
eso es
but they
muy
have
importante
presence
cuando
there.
cada
That's
uno
why
de
it's extremely
nosotros
important
hacemos algún
when
tipo de
each one of
información
us
educativo para
prepares any
nuestros
educational
diferentes
information
lenguajes
for the
indígenas,
different
es
languages.
importante
It is
compartir estos materiales
important
con otras
to share the
organizaciones para que
materials
ellos lo
with
puedan
other
aprovechar, porque
organizations so they
puede
can
ser
take
que
advantage of
haya
it.
nuestra comunidad la misma que estamos sirviendo en otros estados, pero por
And it's a
solamente
community that we're
adaptarnos a
serving
área,
in other
nos
states,
limitamos a
but
compartir esa información con
due to
ellos.
having
Y cuando
to
hay
focus on our
videos
area, we sometimes don't have as much
plataformas que ellos pueden
availability
compartir,
to share in
eso es
other
de gran ayuda.
places, but it
Trabajar
really helps to be
colectivamente
able
con
to
otras
work
organizaciones,
collectively and
eso
share through
ayuda mucho
platforms
porque
that
hay canales de
allow
información a los cuales
sharing
podemos
at a
ampliar
larger
nuestro
scale
trabajo.
so that
Y
that way we can
lo más
really
importante,
expand our work and
compartirlo
more
con nuestras
importantly,
comunidades
share
indígenas,
with our
que
indigenous
sus
communities
poblaciones son pequeñas en
whose
otros estados. Y
populations
ahorita
are
también
smaller
con
in
esta
other
de California,
states
a la cual estamos
in
presentes.
comparison to the state of California, where we have a high presence.
Thank you. I think I'm gonna take the last question and I'm gonna ask you. You are an expert in this. MICOP is an expert. There are a few other organizations that do similar work. How do you like to be approached? If somebody has a project and they want to have it interpreted into an Indigenous language or to make videos, how do you like to be approached to work on such a project?
Excelente pregunta.
That
Esto
is such
depende
an
mucho,
excellent
¿no?
question.
Por
This
ejemplo,
really
si
depends.
hay
Like, for example,
contrato, porque
if
recordemos,
there
estamos en una
is a
organización
contract, because
donde
we
se nos
have to
ponen
remember
limitaciones a la
that
cual nosotros
we are with
tenemos
an organization where we
respetar
do have
esos tipos de
limits
acuerdos.
or
Por ejemplo,
limitations
si nos llega una
in terms
información
of
que
the
quieren que
agreements. For
nosotros
example, if we
sacáramos,
have
nosotros
information that
solamente
somebody
somos un
wants us
programa
to
que nos dedicamos a
interpret,
ciertos
we are
temas,
just a
los
program
cuales
that focuses on certain
las personas
topics
que están dando estos fondos
where the
estamos
people who are
trabajando
giving
bajo
this
peticiones de
these
ellos.
funds
Pero
were
si hay
working based on
otra
their petitions.
organización
But if there's
puede
another
ser de oportunidad,
organization
¿verdad? Quieren
that
que
where
hagamos estos
perhaps
tipos de
due
videos.
to
Entonces tenemos
legal
nuestro
matters, they
departamento
want us
de
to work on
interpretación,
those
servicio de
issues,
interpretación
we
en
do
lenguas
have
indígenas. Y hicimos
a
trabajo
Department of
con ellos para
Indigenous
que ellos puedan
Languages
hacer
where
los
we
procesos
focus
necesarios
this
para hacer
work
un
so that they can
contrato
go through the
y para
process, the
poder hacer este
appropriate
tipo de
process,
videos o este tipo de
do the
trabajo,
contracting
pero
to
respetando
set the
siempre
time
mucho
for
nuestras
those
pólizas
videos,
but respecting each and one of our internal policies so that we don't cross over that fine line of our working teams. So I think that there's a lot of ways to work, but this is something that we're working. Like, for example, with UC Davis, we're working with several organizations, and if they want to be a part of a video or want us to be a part of a video, then we need to sit down, have a meeting with the localized leaders, so that we can talk about all of the work, and we need to know, is this under the same grant? Is this the same type of work? So that, and if not, so that we can establish a different contract to do those activities, because we need to ensure that it's part of the work that we are needing to do. It's also very important to identify who we are working with and what type of organization they are. For example, if it's a private attorney's office and they want to work with MICOP, that may not work well with me, because I would have to do this work separately, because it doesn't fall within our program in terms of the focus of our programming. So it's important to have all that clear, but everything is possible. Our organization is ready. We're ready to work with you and work with all of this information, and also to do translation. As far as I know now, when we do the translation, we just need to identify, making sure that we have the person in-house ready to do the type of work that is being asked for. But thank you. These are excellent questions.
Well, thank you so much, Griselda, for sharing your process, your expertise, and the approach, because educating everyone in our communities is essential, regardless of the language that they speak. So thank you very much. And thank you all for joining us today. We are at time, so I will encourage you to check out the MICOP website, which has all their various channels that have so much great information. Please join us on November 4th, Monday at 4 p.m. for our next seminar, which will be focused on bird flu. Unfortunately, it's a topic that we need to be paying a lot of attention to here in California. Thank you again, and have a wonderful afternoon. Thank you, Griselda.